Tea. Let's talk about tea. You know, sometimes the British just say, more tea, Vicar? And I think most people have forgotten what that's even in reference to. But it's what you're supposed to say if there's a pause in the conversation. Usually slightly awkward pause in a conversation. The kind of joke is, I'm sure it must have occurred, it must have been in a play or a film at some point, but say you've got somebody that you mustn't swear in front of, like the vicar around the tea. And the vicar, that would be like a priest or a clergyman of some sort. And something awkward happens, and there's a kind of a, and then the hostess turns around and says, more tea, Vicar. That is what it comes from, just like, so if there's an awkward pause, even if you haven't got any tea, you'll find the British will say, or the older British will just suddenly say, more tea, Vicar? Because then you move on, you change the subject, so you try and take it away from whatever just went horribly wrong. Tea. I didn't drink tea till I was 26. And my father, I think he regarded that as the most dreadful of all the things that I did, that were dreadful. That was the one he was most concerned about for my future, because if I didn't learn to drink tea, how could I ever do anything? Go out in public, meet people, be invited to tea. So eventually I learned. On one day when there was nothing else to drink at all in a hall, I drank tea. I came back, I learnt how to drink tea. I went home, he poured me a cup of tea. He thought I wasn't going to drink it. I drank it. He actually, tears welled up in his eyes. He was so happy. That's how important tea is in the UK. I mean, we stole it from the Chinese. It's got terrible history, but we still drink it. To which I will introduce black tea CO2 extract. This is my most tea-ish of materials. I used it in Hammersmith tea and biscuits. And in some other things. I've used it in Flora Psychedelica, which I've been playing with recently. All the commonly used stimulants and relaxants, legal, I put in Flora Psychedelica, so I included tea. But this black tea CO2 extract, which comes from somebody who got bought by Givaudan, so now I have to get it through IES. I have to buy a kilo at a time from France, but so I've got a little bit left. We'll see how long it lasts. Maybe I can, but you know, because it's got quite a long use by date on it. Oh, you know, Arthur's not here and I've done 2 strips. So I'm going to just like throw it. I'm so in the habit of sitting here and talking and Arthur being there. Even though he's not there, I've dipped him a strip. He's only away. I mean, he'll be back. You know, it's fine. It's nothing terrible's happened. Here you go, Arthur. Black tea CO2 extract. Critically cooled carbon dioxide. It has to be completely dry in order to be able to be extracted. You can't use CO2 extraction on things which are damp. Not the slightest bit squidgy. So, first of all, what happens is nothing. Because this is such a deep dark Basie Mac base face, you know, it just takes ages to get off the strip is what I find. Aha, and then suddenly you just get, it's as if you've taken the top off your tea caddy and, you know, none of these bags, you know. Okay, it smells a bit like you've opened a packet of bags as well. But this, so if you can afford it, as Eve Tongi would say, use the natural. And then you might want to create the impression of tea. When I got this was about 550, 600 a kilo or something. And that was a few years back, so goodness knows what it is now. But, you know, not cheap. But then little goes a long way. But it's so tea-y, and it seems to retain its tea-ness when you use it in something. I also have the jasmine tea extract from the same people. Ephonic. Those are the guys. Ephonic. At least that's what they were called before they were bought. Probably still are. But it is part of Givaudan. Right, so the jasmine tea CO2 extract. You know how jasmine tea is made? It's like you just put the jasmine flowers next to the tea. And the jasmine is so very intrusive that the tea starts to smell of jasmine. So, yeah. I find it quite an affordable jasmine material, because compared to the cost of jasmine absolute, you get quite a lot of jasmine for your money when you use jasmine tea CO2 extract. But this swooshes me straight to a Chinese restaurant. Specifically, the one right down Northfield High Street, which has got a very good reputation, by the way. Should you ever be somewhere near the Piccadilly line, you know, between Heathrow, Central London, just get off, walk up. It's called Maxime's. Absolutely no relation to the Parisian, you know, Belle Epoque. It's an Ealing Chinese restaurant. It's great. But I'm there, you know, I smell that, and that's where I am. The jasmine tea CO2 extract is just perfect, but you might not necessarily want jasmine in your tea. I've got their green tea as well, and that is the most photorealistic green tea I know, probably because it's made from green tea. But you know, with some naturals, it's got a name on it, like osmanthus. Doesn't really smell of osmanthus. Osmanthus smells of leather and apricots. So who's to say? You don't always know. This is my green tea, Givco. Oh my goodness, this one's at 10%. I have it at, yeah, I have it at different strengths. But see, this is the thing about green tea, Givco. I don't not think it smells like green tea. It smells green, but I think it's best for figure chords. It's almost like if you've never had a cup of green tea, you might be convinced. But I'm not. But it's great. You don't need a lot. It's very diffusive, very refreshing. It will take over. It will fill the room. But if you want a bit of lift on your perfume, even though you might not necessarily want it to smell of tea, you could use your green tea Givco. They know what they're doing, those people. Let's talk about Earl Grey, because I can quite happily put this around the room. And that, by the way, is what a bergamot looks like. It looks like a slightly squidgy orange, a little bit green. It does not look like a lumpy lime. I saw it recently on a slide where it looked like a lumpy lime. So, why bergamot? Because of Earl Grey tea. So, you can evoke the aroma of Earl Grey by putting bergamot there. If you were to use Earl Grey with the black tea, use bergamot with the black tea CO2 extract, boom, you are straight in Earl Grey territory. That's Earl Grey. That's him at the top of Grey's Monument in Newcastle. Those of you who've walked up Grey Street, seen the monument, on top of Monument Tube Station, metro station, that's him, Earl Grey, after whom the tea is named. So, but what about evoking tea? What about if you don't want to go out and buy black tea CO2 extract? You want a bit of a tea note in something. I'm all for the minimalist approach. And what I find, let's find a disc. Because here's something. Here's one I made earlier. That's where it is. So, could tell you what it is. I can put 2 drops of this. This is my secret Lapsang Souchong tea. Okay, it's not very secret. Rubber band just fell apart. To 1. So, if you want a kind of smoky tea like Lapsang Souchong, my accent's probably terrible, but anyway. This is what I did. I've got a quite smoky Indian vetiver, 10% strength, and I have Orris Chivko at 10% strength, and I put 2 drops of the vetiver to 1 Orris. It's beginning to smell even a little bit like Genmai Cha, which is a Japanese green tea with toasted rice in it. So I'm going to put an extra drop of the Orris on, see if I like that better. Because, you know, when you're doing perfumery, you don't necessarily need to make an accord which is an absolute identical standalone thing that smells just like what you're aiming for, and then pour it into a perfume and wonder if it's going to work. You just need, if you want a perfume that smells of tea, you don't necessarily need to put tea in there. You know, materials are input, notes are output. If I were to hand this round my room full of students now and say, tea, and they smelt it, they'd go, oh yes. If I handed it round without saying anything, they probably wouldn't, because that's just the way it works. You put an idea into somebody's head and tell them it smells of something, and you've probably had it done to you. They go, oh yeah. And you put something round and somebody will go, oh, is it greenhouses? It smells like greenhouses. And everybody else then goes, oh yeah, it smells just like a greenhouse. It's curiously infectious. I have a plan. I'll go back and fiddle with these and then make a formula. So what I just put on is 1 drop of Veramos at 5% solution. Methyl atratate. It's got another name, hasn't it? But it's the alternative to, or extender to oak moss. It's not straight black Yorkshire tea, but it smells like an expensive, obscure tea you'd expect to pay £10 for 100 grams for. I actually quite like it. Oh, you know what I didn't do? Write everything down, did I? That is a disgrace. So I will just put that in here on my little formula page where I wrote last week. So I'm going to call it exclusivity. I only just thought of that. I'm sorry, it's really terrible. So that was 2 vetiver smoky input, 2 oris živko, 1 Veramos. Veramos is at 5%, oris živko is at 10%, the vetiver is at 10%. If I write that down, then I know where to start. Talking of which, if you got this far, see this book. This is from a Portuguese manufacturer that I went to visit a couple of weeks ago. And I've kind of talked them into making a special exclusive edition of a formula book. Do you fancy one? Because you can put your name down. Let me know. It's going to be marbled paper, blue fabric binding, and in the style of an old-fashioned ledger to keep your formulas, because, as I keep saying, the cloud is just somebody else's computer. And honestly, the number of attacks we've had, I mean, just yesterday and today, somebody trying to hack my Patreon. Changed the password, they did it again. So, in this world of insecurity and cyber attacks, I think it's a really good idea. It's even more of a good idea to have a book and write things in it. I really like this. I planned it in my head, you know, before I started doing this. I didn't just have random bottles around thinking, oh yes it did. I had a plan. I like to make it look as if I've just thought of them. That's my plan. Make it up. See what you think. Let me know. Next time, we should have Arthur back. That'd be nice. For a start, I'm just looking at the plain window. I much prefer looking at Arthur.